In this video, I'll show you how to make this gorgeous flower bouquet that will last you forever. It consists of sunflowers, lavender, roses, lilies, and it has leaves to go along with them. To make the sunflower, you're going to be doing 2 rounds of the same size and then connecting them with the petals. I'm using a 5.5 mm hook for this one, and I'm going to start off by making a magic circle, just draping my yarn over, making an X on the one side and parallel lines on the other side, going underneath that first strand, over the first one, then yarning over and pulling through to secure. Then into that magic circle, I'm going to do 6 single crochets. So I'm going to insert my hook in, yarn over, pull through, yarn over again, and pull through my 2 loops. I'm doing that so there's 6 of those on my ring. And once I have those 6 single crochets on my ring, I'm going to pull this tail end here, not the working yarn, but the tail end, to close my loop. Like so. And then I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch that I made to close the circle. And chain 1 to secure. And then into this first row, we're going to increase in every stitch. So at the end of the row, we should have 12 stitches in total. To increase, I'm just going right back into that same stitch. You can use a stitch marker as well if that's what you prefer, but I just rather count with mine. And once you finish those 12 stitches, you're going to do the same thing and slip stitch and chain 1 to secure your row. In the second row, or in the next row, you're going to increase every second stitch. So in that first one, I'm just going to do this 1 single crochet. And in the second one, I'm going to do 1 increase. So 1 single crochet and then an increase. And we're just going to continue this pattern until we have 18 stitches. So that was my 3rd, my 4th, and for the 5th and 6th, they're going to be in the same stitch. Then once we finish that, we're going to slip stitch again to that first stitch on the row. And chain off to secure. And then for the next row, we're going to increase after every 3rd stitch. And it's the same thing as before, single crocheting into the first 2 stitches and then doing an increase into the 3rd. Then once we're finished with that row, we're going to increase into every 4th stitch. And that's going to give us 30 stitches at the end. And I'm going to put the pattern, all the patterns for all these in the description too, so you don't have to follow along with me and you can go at your own pace. Then after that, we're going to do an increase into every 5th stitch in the next row, and that's going to leave us with 36 stitches. For the last row, I'm going to be increasing into the 6th stitch, and I just did, well, this would be the 7th row, but you can go as far as you want to make the sunflowers as big as you'd like, but this is just what I like to prefer as the small ones. So we're doing the 6 single crochets into the row. And then increasing in that 6th stitch. And after you have finished your round, you can just cut your string. After you've done that last slip stitch, you can just cut your string with some good scissors, hopefully, that are better than mine, and pull that tight, tie off. Then whenever you go to do your petals, we're just going to connect these together. Okay, to start off your petals, you're going to want to slip your crochet hook through both of the loops of your rounds, and then you're going to want to pull your yellow color through. I decided to tie mine so that it stays secure, and I'm putting my hook right back into that loop. And for this first one, I'm going to do 2 single crochets. So there's 1 and 2. And I'm going to yarn over, insert it into the next stitch, and then you're going to go through, make sure you're going through both of the loops. So you're connecting the rounds every time that you go into a next stitch. You're yarning over and going through 2 loops each time. There's no half stitches in these petals, so whenever you do your loops, you're going through just the 2 loops, yarning over again, and going through the other 2 loops. So for the next one, we're going to yarn over twice, like a triple stitch, and inserting it into the same stitch. And this yarn isn't really the best, but it's what I'm working with. Okay. And then for the next one, we're going to yarn over 3 times and insert it into that same stitch. And we're going to chain 2 and slip stitch into these 2 chains, or these 2 loops. Oops. That first loop here, and in between these 2 as well, to make our petal kind of the tip of the petal there. And we're going to yarn over 3 times again and go into the next stitch. It gets a little easier to hold the round once you get some more petals on there to hold it together. I'm going to yarn over twice, like a triple crochet. Then yarning over once, like a double. Then we're going to chain up 2 and insert it into this next stitch with a slip stitch. And that is how you make your petals. You can kind of adjust the shape there so if they've got the tip pointed more. I'll show you how to do that again. Get some more working yarn out here. So we're starting off with the 2 single crochets. And we're yarning over twice, a triple, and insert it into the next stitch. Yarning over 3 times, inserting into that same stitch. Chaining up 2 and slip stitching it back through those 3 loops that are in below the chain that we just did. Yarning over 3 times again and inserting it into the next stitch. Yarning over 2 times, like a triple crochet, yarning over once, and we're going to chain up 2 and insert that into the next stitch with a slip stitch. And we're going to do that all around until we complete our sunflower. This is going to be our final stitch into the sunflower, so I just have that chain 2 on my hook here. I'm slip stitching that into the last little loops here, and it's a little hard to get into. Alright, slip stitching through. And then we're going to chain 1 to tie off. And you can cut your string. And there you have your sunflower top. And I will show you how to connect it to your wire then and add a nice little leaf. To finish off the sunflower, I just have a piece of wire. I haven't cut this one into 2. I've just left it as 1 and bent it in half so that you can kind of like push it through like I have on the backs here. You can't really see it that well on that one. and then glue the edges down. You could always wrap this all first if you wanted the back to be all green, but I have them facing together in the bouquet, so I don't think it matters too much in my case, but you can always do something different with yours. I'm just pushing it through the middle. Got it in between stitches there. And then pushing it through, and you can decide, doesn't matter which side to have it facing. Once you have it pushed through, you can glue the one side down. And you can just bend the wires together to start wrapping all the way down like we have done before. Then after I finish wrapping it, I'll normally glue that piece down so it stays flat up against the back. Just holding it there so that the glue stays there. I'm using a very low temp glue gun, so sometimes it doesn't stick all the best, and I promise I will weave my ends in before it's all said and done. And there you have your finished sunflower. Oh, almost forgot the leaf. You can glue that anywhere, and that's just a simple leaf crochet from before. And I like to kind of wrap mine around. You can do it however you'd like. There you have your sunflower. To make the first leaf crochet, you're going to start off with a chain 15, and I'm using the same 5mm hook that I've used before. Once you've chained 15, you're going to turn and single crochet into the second loop from your hook. So not that first one, the second one. And we're going to do the same thing in the next two loops, so not 2 more single crochets. Then in the next 2 loops, we're going to do a half double crochet. Then in the next 4 loops, we're going to do a double crochet. Then we're going to do a half double crochet in the next 2 loops. And then a single crochet into the last 3 loops. Then we're going to single crochet into the same stitch. Turn our work, single crochet in the same stitch again, and repeat that pattern all along the other side. Now we're going to turn our work to the other side and do single crochets all along the side. And once we finish that, to do the kind of tip of the leaf, we're going to single crochet into that same stitch again, chain up 1, and then we're going to go through that first stitch that we just did, then through the 2 at the top tip of the leaf there. And we're going to slip stitch and pull through all 4 of those loops. Then I'm going to single crochet into that same stitch, kind of secure that off. And then continue single crocheting down the other side of the leaf. And once you get to the end, you're going to slip stitch back into that first stitch on the other side and chain 1 to tie off. there you have your leaf. And I've used these for the sunflower, the lily, and there's a different one for the rose. And you can just weave these ends right into the sides or down the middle. Okay, to make the roses, it's actually pretty similar to the sunflowers. We're just making rounds like before, but just not as big. You're gonna do 3 of the small ones and 2 of the larger ones. They all start off with a magic circle, so we're doing the same thing as before. Wrapping the yarn around our fingers, making the X on one side and the lines on the other. And we're going to do 6 single crochets into that loop. And I'm going to pull that string once I finish those 6 single crochets to close my loop. Then I'm going to slip stitch into that first loop, or that first single crochet that we did to close our loop. Maybe if I can get my hook in there. And chaining one always to secure. And we're going to increase in every stitch in this row, so we have 12 total. And then for the next row, we're going to be increasing into every second stitch. And in the next row, we're increasing into every third stitch. And in this last row for the smaller petal, we're going to increase in every fourth stitch. Once we're finished with that row, after we chain that one off, we're going to chain 4. And then we're going to cut that off. And that gives us our third petal of our 4. To make the larger petal, we're doing the same thing as before, except we're going to do something a little bit different for this last row. Once you get back to that part of your round, instead of tying off like we did before, we're going to do one more row, and that row is going to be a little bit different. It's going to start off with 7 single stitches, and we're going to do an increase, 3 single crochets, an increase, 3 single crochets, increase, 3 single crochets, increase, and then 8 or 10 single crochets, whichever finishes it off, and then slip stitching into the final row. I'll put that all on screen or down in the description below then. So that was 9 single crochets that I did into that, and then I'm going to slip stitch I'm going to slip stitch. I'm going to go up 4 like I did on the other one. And I'm going to wrap my yarn around once and do a double crochet in to that same stitch, chaining up 1 to tie off, and that just gives us a little bit more to work with then when we're putting our rows together. I'm going to cut that extra string off, pulling it through. And there we have all the petals that we need for our rose. Now we're going to make the socket of the rose. It's actually quite simple. We're not starting off with a magic chain this time, or magic circle. We're going to do just a regular chain, starting off with a slip stitch, and then chaining 8. After you've chained 8, you can connect your first stitch with your last with a slip stitch and a chain 1. Then we're going to go all around this row, increasing. We're doing a single crochet into the first stitch and then increasing every second stitch. I'm going to connect them. The slip stitch and chain 1. Now for this next row, we're increasing, or no, I'm sorry, we're not increasing at all. We're just going to single crochet into the next row, and that's going to make it kind of curl up on us. Now once we have that done, or that row done, we are going to chain 5. And then into the first stitch, we're working with this chain 5 now. We're going to first slip stitch into the, not the chain that we just did, but the one right next to it. Slip stitching into that one. We're going to do a single crochet in the next one over. Then we're going to do a half double crochet into the next one, just yarning over once, pulling through all 3 of those loops on the hook. Then we're going to do a single crochet into the next stitch over. Then we're going to connect that back onto the ring with a slip stitch. And that makes the little parts of the socket. Now you can choose to do that all the way around your ring, but I decided to skip a couple, and to do that you can just slip stitch 2 spots over. So there's 1 and 2, and again I'm going to chain up 5, doing a slip stitch and a chain over, then a single crochet, a half double crochet, oops, a single crochet, and then connecting it again with a slip stitch. Skipping 2, slip stitching over 2, doing this all around till you make it back to the start of the row. And once you have those slip stitched, you can just chain 1 to finish off and cut your string. You can just simply weave your ends into the socket then so that they don't show. To make the rose, or to assemble the rose, you're going to first start by rolling up one of the smaller petals and just hot gluing it together. And I'm just doing the kind of the bottom edges so that I can shape it later. And you're going to take another one of the smaller petals and wrap that around. And again, I'm just gluing the bottom. I think for this whole project it only took me around 3 or 4 glue sticks, so it's not too bad. I made quite a few of these flowers, I think 4 of each. Then we're going to take the last 2 larger petals and just wrap them around, glue them around. There you have the top part of your rose. And you can push the petals up farther and shape them around to get them to look how you'd like. Then I'm going to cut 2 pieces of wire to make the stem. Once you have your 2 pieces of wire cut, I have mine glued together. You can add more glue, and then you're going to place it in between all the petals that we've just glued together. Kind of pressing it together. So that glue stays into the center. And then we're going to wrap our thread or our yarn all around until we get to the bottom like we've done before. Once you have that done, you can glue on your leaf, and then you'll have your finished rose. And there you have your finished rose. To make the petals for the roses, you're going to do the same thing as we've done for the lilies. So we're going to start off with a single, or with a slip knot, and then we're going to chain 12. Then we're going to slip stitch back through the row, skipping the first one on our hook. Then I'm going to turn my work so it's facing out towards the left. This happens sometimes. So in the first stitch, we're going to do a single crochet, then a half double crochet, a double crochet into the next stitch, then into the next stitch we're going to do a half triple crochet, then in the next stitch a triple crochet, in the next stitch we're going to do a half quadruple crochet, and then a triple crochet, then doing a half triple crochet into the next stitch, a double crochet into the next stitch. Half double crochet into the next one, and then the single crochet at the end. And I'm doing another single crochet to turn. I'm doing the same exact thing on the other side. Then slip stitching into that first chain or first stitch on the other side and chaining one to tie off. And you can just weave your ends right down the sides or through the middle. And that is the leaves that I have used for the roses. Now we're going to make the lily, and the lily consists of 6 petals. Well, I only have 5 here because we're going to make the 6th one. And then the pistil, which consists of the stigma and the style. And we're going to start off with chaining 12 in your middle color. I chose yellow for this one, or like a pale yellow, I guess you could say. Then we're going to slip stitch back through the chain, skipping that first one, so you're only slip stitching through 11 of your stitches. Then on this last one, I'm only going to pull through the 1 loop and leaving the last 2 loops on my chain so I can change to the white color that I have. I'm just pulling that through the last 2 loops. And to secure that, you just want to tie the 2 shorter strands together. We're going to chain up 1 to secure that, and then turn our work. Now to start the lily, petal, you're going to single crochet into the first loop. So this first loop here, just doing a single crochet. Then in the next loop over, we're going to do a half double crochet. And then in the next loop, we're going to do a double crochet. In the next loop, we're going to do a half triple crochet, yarning over twice, inserting it into the loop, going through the first 2 loops, then going through the last 3. And in the next one, we're going to just do a regular triple crochet, and in the next one, we're going to do a half quadruple crochet. So we're going to yarn over 3 times, insert it into the stitch, go through the first 2 loops, go through the next 2 loops, oops, try that again. Going through the first 2 loops, the second 2 loops, and then the last 3. And that's the largest stitch. You're going to go back down, doing a triple crochet in the next stitch, then a half triple crochet, a double crochet, the half double crochet, and then the single crochet. And then to get that kind of tip of the petal, just going to do a single crochet in that same stitch, turn the work, then single crochet into the next stitch, And then we're repeating that pattern all over again on the other side. And once you reach the end, you can just slip stitch back into the first stitch on this other side. And chain up 1 to secure. Then you can cut your strings and then weave in the excess through the body so that they look like this. And that will have you, and then do that 5 more times. You'll have your 6 petals for your lily. To make the pistil of the lily, I'm just taking a small piece of garden wire, probably about 3 inches or so, and wrapping green string around it, and then brown for the tip. And take brown for the top. And there you have your pistil, or one of them at least. And then I've done 3 others. And to make the kind of middle bit, I'm just going to glue them all together. Kind of bending them out a bit so they don't all stick together. And there you have the middle part of your lily. Now we're going to start to assemble the lily. And you're just going to take that middle part that we've just did and glue it to one of the petals. Then we're just going to take another petal and glue it around the other side. And you'll just keep building off of that, placing them around. You can fold them down afterwards. I've only glued the bottom so that you can shape them afterwards. And there you have the top part of the lily. I've cut 2 pieces of garden wire that I've tried to make the same length. I'm just going to glue those together and insert those into the top part of the lily. And that isn't going to be very secure, so we're going to wrap some string around it. I used a darker green for these lilies compared to all the other ones, but you can use whatever color you'd like. I'm just gluing the string at the base, and then I'll work it up around and back down again. Then I am adding a leaf to mine as well. And it's just a simple leaf crochet I've showed in previous. And there you have your lily. To make the lavender, you're going to want to start off with just making a chain of 58. Starting off with a slip knot and chaining up 58. And once we finish our chain of 58, we're going to skip these first 3 loops, and we're going to insert a double crochet. So into that 4th stitch, I'm just going to insert my double crochet. Now into this same stitch, I'm going to double crochet 4 more times, so I have 5 double crochets in total. So it should look a little bit like that. On top of that, I'm going to do a chain 3. And slip stitch into that same stitch. And that makes the top part of that lavender. For the rest of this pattern, it's going to be just the same thing repeating. You're going to slip stitch into the next stitch to kind of connect the two. And you're going to chain up 7 and slip stitch right back into the same stitch. We're going to do that again, slip stitch into the next stitch. Chain up 7. And then slip stitch back into the same stitch. Repeating that pattern all the way down through the rest of the chain. It goes pretty quick once you get used to it. Don't think too much about the end result, just enjoy your crochet. Once you get to the end, you can just slip stitch in. Then do chain 1 to tie off. Then you can cut your string. And weave in your ends. I normally just choose to weave my ends in along the side here, so just up through the edge. And then after you've done that, it'll be ready to glue onto your wire. To finish the lavender, you're just going to wrap it around a piece of wire. Well, I have 2 strands of wire here wrapped in green string. Just going to wrap it around all along that edge of the 58 chains that we've done, wrapping it around. But starting off, we're just going to glue the tip, all those 5 double crochets that we've done, to form the tip of the lavender. Just a little bit of hot glue. And wrapping right around. And you're just going to find your edge and glue right along. You can either choose to glue the whole thing or wait until you get down to the end, which is what I did with a lot of these. Just making sure that top is dry so it doesn't unravel. After you have the tip of the lavender glued on, you can take the edge of your chains and just start wrapping it around the wire. Kind of push up on it to shape the petals a bit more. And then once you get to the end, you can glue the last little piece to the wire. And there you have your lavender. You can add leaves to them if you'd like, but I decided not to add leaves to any of mine because I had quite a few and all my other ones in my bouquet. Once you put them all together, you have your full flower bouquet that you can keep forever. I think they turned out so pretty. You can always change up the colors and do whatever you'd like. I'm going to store mine in a vase, but you could wrap yours in paper or just simply set them on your counter somewhere. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great day.